Hello, welcome to Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell. It's an Inside the Birds presentation. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan, and joining us every week to break down the tape of the Eagles game is NFL Films senior producer Greg Cosell. He's also the star of ESPN's NFL Matchup Show and the Inside the Birds pregame show. Fellas, the Eagles stayed red hot on Sunday. They beat the Steelers 27-13 at the Link for their 10th straight win. They are now 12-2, and they've got a big NFC East rematch game against the Commanders on deck this Sunday on the road. Greg, you watch film of basically every team every week, more film than anybody else. I cannot imagine you watch very many games where one team only plays 43 offensive snaps like the Steelers had against the Eagles. I'm sure that's like the first half in a lot of Lions games, right? That had to be crazy.
That though, Geoff, for me is joy to the world. When I see 43 snaps, because I only have to watch 43 snaps of offense, because when I see like 78 snaps, like the Lions, for instance, is a good example. It's like, oh, because I watch every play, and I don't just sit here and watch it like I'm watching a game. I have the clicker and I go back and forth, and so when I see 43 snaps, man, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I bet, especially when 20 of those 43 are run plays. I mean, that's even
Yeah,
easier. So that's
and
great.
and only two possessions in the second half.
Yeah, amazing. What a weird and amazing game for the Eagles. So let's talk about what really jumped out at you from a big picture standpoint.
I thought offensively, I thought Jalen Hurts had his best game of the season. I think that what they're doing with him, and look, the one thing we always do, or I always do, is everything is tape study, and when I see things, I think in terms of coaches, and in fact, a lot of people that I know well, and a scout called me yesterday, and we had some great conversations, and everything that I do comes from tape and understanding of how teams see things and think, and you know, as you guys know from talking to people, Jalen Hurts has certain strengths and certain limitations, and the Eagles are doing an outstanding job playing to his strengths. Think of it this way. Why do they do so much no huddle? Why did they do so much empty? There's reasons for that. And the reasons for that are because that really helps minimize what some of his limitations are and really plays to what his strengths are. And they did that exceptionally well this week, and you will absolutely see that going forward. And it allowed him to play as decisively as any game this season. I mean, he did not run around this week. He hit his back foot. He threw the football. I mean, Geoff, you unfortunately couldn't make the Patreon on Tuesday night, but that's one of the things we spent a lot of time talking about, how decisive he was. He had 37 dropbacks. Only 5 times did he leave the pocket. That's almost unheard of for Jalen Hurts. I mean,
Greg, I wanted to
oh, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
This was just a game where he hit his back foot. The
Yep.
ball came out.
So I want to pick up on that because we've talked about Hurts all season, what the challenges have been, and you always sent us your notes, and I was reading through it, and I was kind of blown away. Like, this was a drop back game for Hurts. He doesn't usually do that.
No.
Do you think this is intentional?
Yes. Everything's intentional.
Okay.
I mean,
No,
some
because
things
they've
work,
never
some
done
things
this
don't,
before.
but everything's intentional. I'm
No,
not saying
but
that to
the
be
thing, no,
sarcastic
but
or funny, but I mean,
no, but again, okay, but I just find it interesting that they've not done this with him before. It's almost like, did he ask for this? It was great.
Well, I think part of that goes with the no huddle and the empty, because now see, two things happen when you go no huddle and empty. Normally, again, nothing's 100%. We know that,
Sure.
but probability and tendency wise, two things happen when you go no huddle and empty. Number one, when you go no huddle, you normally get the defense having to be more static than movement based, because they don't know when you're going to snap the ball. So they have to be in position to play whatever their defensive call is, and you normally don't get an opportunity to start changing calls before the snap. Okay, that's one. Then when you go empty, the other thing that forces the defense to do is spread out. Okay, again, they need to line up because it's empty. The offense is spread. So now what happens is you get a more stagnant defense, and you can run more of a drop back passing game because it's clearer for the quarterback pre-snap. He doesn't have to think through the process. I think I mentioned, and this was a couple of weeks ago, Jeff, so you were there, when I said what you're trying to do with your quarterback is have him simply confirm and validate on his drop as opposed to decipher on his drop. And that's what no huddle and empty helps a quarterback do.
A lot of people, Greg, are going to say, "What took so long?" Because
And that
obviously,
I don't have an answer for,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, no, I know, and I'm just throwing it out there because when we're wrapping up offense, I'm going to ask you an important question. So don't let me forget.
Okay. Uh-oh. I'm
Yeah.
breaking out in a sweat now, Jeff. I feel like
I'm going to put you on the spot.
I feel like I'm getting ready to take the SATs again. I should have my number two pencil ready, you know?
What century was that? No, I'm just kidding.
Either that or like Roy Firestone. I'm going to
That's
have you
good. That's
crying. I'm
good.
going to have you nostalgic and crying by the end of the.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So let's then talk about as we get into the offense. So I have to credit you. For weeks you've been talking about Jalen Hurts being a real good orchestrator of no huddle at times within a game that are really significant. And of course, against the Steelers, it was even more
He's
pronounced.
very good at that.
And then spread. What did the spread concepts, when I say spread, for those who don't know, empty backfield, no
Empty.
running back, 4 or 5 wide usually. What did that do for Jalen Hurts and the passing offense in general?
Well, first of all, they had the most snaps of empty in this game that they've had all season in any game. And that's, I can't remember whether it was you, Jeff, or Adam just a moment ago said, "Is this intentional?" It's all
Yeah.
intentional. That was done for obvious. That was done for a reason. They didn't just, one night, during the week say, "You know what? Let's throw a little empty in this week. What the hell?" They didn't. That's not the way coaches think.
Do you think though, Greg, it was is it a little bit matchup too? Have you seen the Steelers have
That's
they
what I
done
was
them
going to
before?
ask. Was this for the Eagles to get right, or was it a matchup
Yeah,
specific?
thank you.
It's
That's really what I'm
probably,
asking.
again, none of us know that, but
Right.
my guess is it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and I think as we talked about when you get empty, you're spreading a defense out. So what's going to happen is, well, the Steelers have evolved over the last number of years anyway. They're not as big a blitz defense as they used to be. So it's not so much that you're trying to take away their pressure, but if you can spread them out, don't forget they were missing one of their smartest players. And this guy's not a well-known name, maybe for fans, but if you talk to coaches in the league, as I have, Deshaun Elliott is viewed as one of the smartest players in the NFL, okay? In fact, Vic Fangio had him in Miami last year, and I found out from a Fangio disciple who's been with Vic that Fangio thought he's one of the smartest players he's ever coached in his entire career. Think about that for a minute.
Wow.
Fangio's been doing this a long time. So now you're taking backup players who are not used to playing in a certain spot, and all of a sudden you're asking them to have to sort of see a lot more and be in position and have to do more. So that could have, you mentioned the Steelers, that could have factored in, Jeff, for sure, because you're taking out, arguably, and we know Minka Fitzpatrick's a very smart player as well. So they have two incredibly intelligent safeties in the way they see the game, and one of them's gone, and now it's someone else, and
Yeah.
it's just different. And
And that's
now you're attacking what you believe to be a weakness in their defense.
sure. And not to mention they were also without Larry Ogunjobi, who is one of their better
Right,
defensive
right.
linemen. In fact, Greg, I didn't clip this, but I wanted to ask you about it because this is what made me wonder, was this Eagles get right or also matchup specific or a little bit of both? I didn't clip the play because the outcome wasn't great. It wound up being a turnover. But the no huddle aspect on 3rd and 5 in the first quarter where Jalen Hurts runs and
And he
fumbles.
fumbled the fumble play.
Yeah, you can see that they're trying to run a guy in and out. They're not
Yeah,
set. And when I froze it, I noticed there were only two defensive linemen on the field. There was no Keanu Benton, no Cam Hayward. The only name that you might recognize would be TJ Watt. And then Patrick Queen was in the A gap as a fourth defender, and he dropped back. So it really was just a three-man
right.
run. And Jalen Hurts was able to just run right up the middle. Unfortunately, he got hit and fumbled. But the design of the play and the concept there of the no huddle and not letting Pittsburgh substitute seemed to be a common theme. I noticed there were times that Hayward was not on the field while they were running plays.
Yeah, I mean that's what you're also doing with no huddle. We talked about that last week. Remember, I said when we did the pregame on Sunday, I said that they would get them to, have to substitute and have to, play people. I mean, just think about the first possession. The third play of the game, they went no huddle. And again, we do this so that people understand. I don't know what you're going to clip. So, we do this all off, off the cuff. So, but
Keep
the
you
third
guessing.
play of the game was Smith 21 yards on a shallow crosser out of 11 empty. Okay. So it was a combination of no huddle and empty. And the Steelers were in their base nickel, which is what they wanted them in. By base nickel, I mean that it was Queen and Roberts, not Queen and Wilson. You want them in their base nickel with Roberts because he's not a pass defender. He's a run player. And you may remember the Steelers did not get their coverage set. No one reacted to Smith. So that's what you're looking for when you do that stuff. All it takes is one guy on defense to not be right. And all of a sudden, a pass that's a 5-yard pass becomes a 21-yard gain.
Well, Greg, we're
And
all in sync here because that is the play. We're going to look at it right this second. It
Nice.
was the first play I had queued up, and you did a great job of introducing what's going to happen here. I think there's also a second significant part to this that we'll discuss when it happens. But here's the play, here's the formation, and go ahead and set it up. You can see how guys are kind of pointing here on the Steelers, and the linemen are standing up right now, so they're not.
yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's no huddle, and they're trying to, get set, and
Mhm.
they're also in empty. It's 11 personnel, meaning it's one back, one tight end, and three wide receivers. They're obviously when it's empty, so they're in a 3-by-2 set because it's empty. So there's five receivers, so it's a 3-by-2 set. Um,
Look at all
And
the
you can see the
pointing.
three receivers are to the wide side of the field, which is normally the case. Not 100%, but it's normally the case. So now the Steelers, they're getting set, and someone's calling out the defense, okay?
Yep.
Maybe it's Queen, maybe it's Roberts. I don't know who has the dot, but someone's calling out the defense, but they're pointing, they're trying to get set. They're seeing empty for the first time. The Eagles have not done a lot of empty this year, so
Yep.
that's probably a little bit. I don't want to say they didn't talk about it at all during the week, but it was probably not something they spent a lot of time on dealing with empty sets. You only have a certain amount of time in preparation. And all of a sudden, on the third play of the game, the Eagles throw out no huddle and empty, and now they're trying to figure it out. They're
Right.
trying to figure it out on the fly.
Look at the outside. I think this is Dante Jackson. He's looking to the
Looking
sideline.
at the sideline.
The safety is
Wow.
looking at the corner here.
Yeah, I
These
mean that's
guys
Beanie
are all
Bishop, the
set.
slot corner. He's like looking inside you as if to say, okay, what are we playing here?
Unscattered look, man, because they haven't seen
Yeah,
this from them.
Yep.
yeah.
So I'm gonna run it here.
So I mean they end up with uh Smith comes across the formation.
Mhm.
So it ends up in some ways being four strong. In some ways, it becomes what we call four strong with four
Right.
receivers to one side. Even though Calcaterra kind of works in the middle, it's still really four receivers to one side, which zones cannot handle. So
Right.
now no one reacts to him,
Sure.
you know, and
So
you
it's
can almost
Queen
see
didn't know where to go.
yeah, look
Watching
at Queen.
Queen.
You almost see Queen like, oh.
oh yeah. Oops.
And again,
Oops.
we don't know what the specific call is, so I'm not going to say whether Queen made a mistake or didn't. We
Yeah.
don't know the answer to that. The
Right.
point is, though, they're not giving that up. That's not built into any defense.
There was a mistake. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the
So
way,
that's what happens.
so the second significant part of this, Greg, to me, that is obvious but understated is Jalen Hurts sees it and throws it because there have been about 4 or 5 plays like this where we've said Smith is crossing in front of his face and he won't make the throw, or he
Right.
waits till he's way outside the numbers where the defense can catch up. The
Right.
perfect see it, throw it, and it gives him the space to turn
Yeah.
upfield and
And
run.
you get a 21-yard gain on a 5-yard play, and it's the third play of the game,
Right.
and everybody's talked about, the slow starts. I mean, this is one way they decided that, what, against, like you said, Jeff, we don't know the answer if it was specific to the Steelers or if this is something we'll see more of going forward, but the point is, it's something new that they did where they combined the no huddle with the empty right away, and it worked. It caught the defense totally unprepared.
Yeah, that's the old unscouted looks. Jonathan Gannon used to talk about that. There's sometimes clubs do something you have not seen on tape, and Greg just outlined it where their communication was broken down because they didn't know it was coming, and you can't you can't fix this while the play's going on. Like that doesn't
No,
work that way. Yeah.
no, no. And this takes nothing away from Hurts. but you're trying to do this with any quarterback. You're trying to
Yeah.
make it easy for him. That's the goal. You're always trying to make the primary read or a clean read the first thing. That's what you're trying to do.
And he delivered.
And so this is no knock on Jalen Hurts at all. Obviously any quarterback could have made that throw. It's no knock on Hurts, but that's just good coaching, good understanding. You get your quarterback off to a good start with a simple throw. You turn a play that theoretically could have just been a 5 yard gain if they played it great and Smith got tackled right there, and you'll still take 5 yards on first down. I think it was first down. I can't remember.
Mhm.
But anyway, the point is it might have been second down because I think the first play of the game was Calcaterra's 22-yarder, which was actually a really good
Yes.
ball
Yeah,
by
I'm
Hurts
glad you
too.
mentioned that because there were, I
That
think,
was a really good ball by Hurts too.
right, I think there were a couple of style of throws that Jalen made
Yeah,
that we don't see commonly. That one, the first one, the stick nod to Grant Calcaterra, where he lets
yeah,
him
that was
burn.
good. That was a good ball.
And then this one we're going to take a look at here, Greg, which is going to be to AJ Brown down the left sideline. A back shoulder throw, which again, we just haven't seen a whole lot of. This is on the, I believe, the second or third possession. So Jalen's nice and warm. And to your point, look at the formation here. They are spread empty again.
So this was the 20-yarder on first and 10 on the third possession where they went no huddle.
Yes.
And this was the play after a Brown 16 yards. So they just get a first, which a lot of teams do, by the way. The teams that like to use no huddle, very often they go right to it after a first down because the defense is a little discombobulated. The Patriots were masters of this with Brady and Belichick, where they'd get a first down and the defense is like standing around, like, okay, and they'd run up to the line of scrimmage. And at that point, you don't know what they're going to do. They could snap it right away. They could wait 10 seconds. I mean, no huddle has sort of three elements to it. It's quick tempo, it's medium tempo, and it's slow tempo. You can go no huddle and also snap it with 2 seconds left on the play clock.
Right.
But there's different tempos. But a lot of teams, and the Eagles are doing this, is you go no huddle right after a first down. And you just get up to the ball, and the defense, after being a little discombobulated, has to get ready right away.
hmm And that's what you see right here. Now, I think I agree with you, Greg. I feel like in the past, when we've seen the Eagles run no huddle, it's not been to run a quick play. They've let the clock go down, but in this game, they wanted to run their plays quicker and faster and not let the Steelers get set into their defense and alignments.
Right. And basically what they did here, and they, this was just strength on strength because by the route concept, by what Devontae does by just running the shallow crosser, they're just setting up the one-on-one. They're
Right.
setting up the one-on-one. So, they're just saying, our guy is going to go against your guy. Our guy's pretty good. Your guy's pretty good, but, we think our guy's a little better than your guy. So, and this is matchup football. And
Yep.
then Hurts made a great throw here. I mean, he back shouldered this because he's not
Mm.
on top of Porter. So you don't want to throw this. Plus, I'm sure Jalen sees the safety who's on the boundary hash, and you
Mhm.
you just want to be a little careful about going over the top here with that safety on the hash.
Right.
So the combination of Brown not being on top of Porter and the safety ranging over from that side of the field is you want to make this a back shoulder throw.
Right.
Good protection there too, we should mention.
Yeah.
Yeah, and only
Clean
listen,
enough look.
only Jalen knows if he saw Devontae Smith again cutting across the field. That could
But
easily
that's not the play. Just
exactly. That's my
keep
point.
that in mind. I mean, just so people understand, this
Right.
play was designed for the one-on-one with your best receiver. That's the he's not the only way he would look elsewhere is if freaking Brown fell down. I mean, this play is designed for AJ Brown.
Right. And by the way, this goes back to when last week, I know people sort of doubted. We were talking about why didn't he throw the deep over on the first play of the game to AJ Brown? He was open. It's NFL open. It's there. And here's the case where we said when you throw it to AJ Brown, even if you think the defense might be there, he'll make a play. And here's a great trust
Well, you
of the
know, it's matchup football. I mean, I remember having a great conversation when Chris Spielman was still doing analyst work. I got a chance to talk to him a number of years ago, and I said to him, when you start preparing for your game, what's the first thing you look for when you start watching tape? He said matchups. I
Mm,
mean, it's not the only thing in the game, but it's a game of matchups. They knew that they were going to have the one-on-one.
right.
That's where the ball's going. I remember talking to a coach who was not in the league when I spoke to him last year, and now he's in the league. And I spent 4 hours on a Zoom call with him. He was really great with his time, last year, and we went over a whole bunch of plays, and he almost gave me like quizzes. She said,
Mm.
he'd say, here's a play, like what's the read, and we go over it, and fortunately I got them all right. But
Really?
the bottom line was he's when it's 3-by-1, and this isn't necessarily 3-by-1, but he was saying when it's 3-by-1 and you have the boundary X receiver and it's clearly 1-on-1. That's where you're throwing the ball. He said,
Yeah.
then the reads, all the other reads go away. That's if you have a big time guy, like that's the guy. Like if
Mhm.
it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that's where you're throwing the ball.
Right. Right. And of course, as Adam mentioned, pretty good protection here. I mean, the pocket's closing in, but
Yep.
Jalen stays in
Well,
there.
there's a timing throw too. Don't forget a
Yep.
fade is
Yep.
a 5-step drop, quick timing. So the ball's out in 2.1 seconds at most.
Yep. See, the key here is he was able to step into the ball right before the rush got there.
Yep.
And he got it off. And the other thing about Hurts, or Greg mentioned 2.1 seconds, your Hurts snap to release takes the longest. And what I liked about this game is and Greg talked about the top, and we all saw it, and fans watching know it as well. There's no game this season he was more decisive than this one.
Without question.
I mean, he saw it. He got what he wanted. He didn't think. He delivered, and that's what you got to do. That's quarterbacking.
And
You
and
got
you
to do it.
know, people might say, because I am older, but I've been doing this a long time, and I was taught by, a lot of coaches who know more than I do. You still have to play this game from the pocket. People always, I get a lot on social media. Oh, you're an old guy, you should retire. You don't know about the changing nature of the quarterback position. Well, no one is arguing that the ability to make plays outside of structure is bad. That's not the point. That's not the argument. But there isn't a coach in the league, an offensive coach, that wouldn't tell you that you still have to be able to play within timing and structure of a pass game. That
Absolutely.
has to happen. You can't live off running around. Is it a valuable asset to have? Yes. But as we've discussed many times, there's a balance there. You don't just drop back and run around. You
Right.
know, you have to execute the offense. And Jalen, I thought, did that at a really high level this week. And
Probably no
and that's
better
why I
example
thought he
than
played
Lamar.
really, really well.
Right. Probably no better example than Lamar, who really did run around a lot first few years and has really developed into a nice passer to complement. I mean,
Yeah, you've
the
got to
running
be
now
able to
complements
do
the
that.
passing. Yeah. All right. Another good one, AJ Brown. This is the third down, and it's going to be a 17-yard gain, Greg.
Fourth possession. This was the possession that ended with the Smith touchdown, if I recall.
It
And
is.
this is another no huddle play. This time at a 12 personnel, but because it's third down, the Steelers were in their pass nickel, which they had Queen and Wilson on the field instead of Queen and Roberts, because Wilson is their pass nickel linebacker with Queen. So this was a case where the Steelers actually they ended up rushing six because of what we call a read blitz or a green dog because they're playing cover one. But because the back, it's Barkley here, I believe, is it not?
It is.
Yes, 26. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So because he blocks, so what happens is the guy who's responsible for him in man coverage can add into the pass rush because that's his man coverage responsibility. So it's a designed five-man pressure with cover one behind it, but you can add in a sixth rusher if the back protects.
Right. And as we roll it, that's exactly what happens. Six come. Barkley does pick up the blitzer here. Nice job of him picking that up. We've talked about some of his pass protection in the past. He
Yeah, and look
likes
at the timing again. See, and this is Brown. See, Porter didn't match up to Brown the whole game. There were times he did, but it wasn't like he traveled with him all game because this is on Jackson, who
right.
Brown just overpowers because Jackson's a little guy.
Yeah.
Brown just gives him a little shove with his outside hand, and boom, creates separation, and then you get the pitch and catch, you know,
Mhm.
and then you get the run after catch with Brown, who's as good as anybody in the league at that element of the game. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is easy. It's not, but I mean
No, no.
relatively speaking, this is it looks easy because the execution's really good.
Hmm.
I
It's
don't even
funny,
mind
Don.
Hurts throwing off the back foot a little bit because it's a
Yeah.
timing thing and he
Well, it's
knows.
not a hard throw.
Right, right,
Not
right,
a hard throw.
right. And
But the knock on Dante Jackson, Greg, it's funny you bring all that up, is that he's too finesse. He's not physical enough. And there you go, that we
Well,
just
he's a
saw.
little guy too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
again, that doesn't mean you can't be physical,
No.
but he's a littler guy.
Yeah.
yep.
That's why Carolina traded him. But anyway.
By the way, this
So
is the no huddle play. Do you see on the Steelers front who's not on the field here? Benton is
T
95, I believe. I don't see isn't Cam Hayward 97?
yeah,
Yes.
Cam Hayward's not on the field.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, that's an advantage in no
So
huddle.
it's
That you
interesting how
have
they
a-
protected this too, because obviously, you know, they're counting on Barkley to pick up 41 because starting with Dickerson, who's still in the game at this point before he got hurt, they're
Yep,
sliding
yep,
to have Dickerson be part of the four that pick up the four there, and and Barkley's responsible for Peyton Wilson.
right.
So this is all they've got this totally protected. They've got six to block six.
Yep. Well done there. Good stuff.
This is just good execution of offensive football. I mean, when you execute it really well, we all know none of this is easy, but it just makes it look relatively easy, but
Right.
it's not easy.
All right, I want to take a look at one more clip before we go on to the defense.
All right, so this play came in the third quarter, and the game was close, by the way. This was not a blowout, through most of the game. So now you're 3rd and 5 in the third quarter, and this was a play that struck me with all the tape I watched as just really high level quarterbacking. And it doesn't seem like much in the course of a game, but it's really big because the idea is to convert third downs and maintain possession of the ball. So what you're going to get here is you're going to get a disguised coverage look. I mean, right now this has a cover one look. There's clearly a single high safety. It has a cover one look, and especially with the motion and the uh, corner following him across the formation. So this has a clear man-to-man look. So that's what Hurts is looking at pre-snap. That's probably what's going through his head. So Geoff, you can run this. So what happens? Okay, keep going. Stop it right here. So what do they do? It's disguise and late rotation to cover two. They end up with two deep half field players. They end up with Patrick Queen running the middle hole and two underneath hook defenders, and then the two corners, Porter up top and Pierre down below. They're flat defenders. It's become cover two, so they change the coverage at the snap of the ball. Okay. This is becoming very common in the league. So now the quarterback has to decipher this as he's dropping back. That's what defenses want to do. Offenses want the quarterback to know before the snap. Defenses want the quarterback to have to think it through after the snap. So they changed it. So now all this is, I'm talking now, all this has to happen for Hurts in a millimeter of a second. I mean,
Mhm.
this stuff's hard, you know, but he recognizes it right away, okay? And he sees that Smith is going to settle right in a void in that zone, in the cover two. And look when he starts his delivery. He starts his delivery before Smith totally turns around. So he saw this and recognized it and read it the whole way. He stuck it right on him. He gained 6 yards. They moved the chains. This is really, really good quarterbacking.
Yeah.
Like I said, it looks simple because it was executed so well, but it was disguised. It was late rotation. They were trying to get Jalen to have to think through it and perhaps go, "Oh my God, I don't know where to throw," and he starts running around. But instead, he knew exactly where to go, and he still played within really precise timing. Boom, balls out, first down, move the chains.
Yep. Good stuff there. All right. Also, another third down where you don't see Cam Hayward on the field because of no huddle. I thought
Mm.
that was really
Mm.
big. I mean, now this is such a quick timing play. I don't know if it would have mattered, Greg, but hey, Hayward's
No,
great.
but the point is, that's
Yeah.
what you're looking for. You're looking to get the great players off the field.
Right. Absolutely. So just excellent stuff. Really good. It was fun. It was a fun tape watch to see that
Oh yeah.
stuff because
No,
we
this
haven't
was
seen that
I
before.
started to notice it like, I'm going through and I'm going like, wow, this looks different, in a
Yeah.
good way.
Yeah, definitely. So here's what I want to ask you, and then we'll go over to defense, okay? And we only have a couple on defense to look at. How sustainable? Obviously, this was a huge wrinkle. It was great. They did a lot of no huddle. They were fast paced. They were spread empty. Got 3 games back. Now it's on tape. How sustainable is it for them to be able to run that style of offense as much as they did against the Steelers for the next 3 weeks and into the playoffs if this is what makes their offense look good?
I think it's sustainable for this reason, Jeff. They can also at any point line up with physicality and grind you out with the run game. If they didn't have that element, then I think it'd be much easier for teams to defend.
Mm.
But when you go and play the Eagles, the first thing you have to deal with is not just what we showed, as great as it was, but you've got to defend that O-line and Barkley. That's the number one. I guarantee you guys probably, talk to people. I guarantee that any defensive coach in the league will tell you when they play the Eagles that the first thing you have to defend is the O-line and the run game and Barkley. Isn't that what you guys hear when you talk to people?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it is sustainable.
All right.
If they didn't have the run element and the big power O line, then it becomes like college football, and then I think it would be easier to defend, but not with the O line and the physicality in the run game.
Gotcha. Let's not slight the defense, Greg. The defense played really well. What jumped out at you at the Eagles, specifically from their defensive front?
Nolan Smith played his best game of the season. I thought he rushed the quarterback. He's getting much better at that, which is great to see. You can see he's being coached and he's taking to it because you can see how the hand usage is becoming a bigger factor. I think the way he plays the run, he's super smart and savvy and understanding how to set the edge and play the run. And he just plays with super high level competitiveness. What I always type in my notes when I evaluate players coming out, the term I use is playing personality. He has an outstanding playing personality. And so he's been a fun guy to sort of track throughout the year, going from a guy early in the season that couldn't rush the quarterback at all, and it looked like, God, could he ever do this, to where he's learning and learning and learning. He may never be an 18 sack guy, but that's not relevant, but he's clearly getting better at it.
Greg, you know what's interesting about that is he started the season as their fourth edge rusher. Huff was ahead of him and BG was ahead of him. And those guys are out. He got thrown in there as a starter. You never know that this could happen, but you just outlined it. It's happened. He's become a ascending player. He now looks like a first-round pick, where before we thought he was a fifth-round pick the way he was playing. And there's this thing in scouting, they leave you wanting more in a good way. I'm sure you probably look at it and say, you know what, I want to see more off of this tape. I look forward to seeing what this tape today. You know?
And see, that's the thing, because I don't talk to players, and I've heard he's a great kid, but but even when you talk to players, I'm sure one thing, Geoff, that is true is you never know exactly what a guy can be. You hope he can, but you never know for sure. It's like Zach Baun. Obviously, someone in the building felt he could be a stack backer, okay? But you don't know for sure. You just don't. Now it's easy to say, "Oh yeah, I knew that." I get that a lot with the draft stuff, where guys, some guy who's a fifth round pick, there's always one draft guru who loved him, and then the guy makes it, and the guy acts like, "Oh, I told you, I know more than everybody else because the guy made it." You just don't know for sure.
Right. Vic has been very clear that he didn't know for sure. It was Vic's idea, but he had no idea it was going to be.
Vic doesn't have to pretend he's smarter than everybody else, because he's been doing this a long time and everybody knows how good he is. He doesn't have to act like, boy, I'm really smart.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So when you play against the Steelers, the number one thing you have to do is be able to stop their run game. Anybody jump out to you in the front seven, either a lineman or linebacker or both, that you thought excelled against the run?
I'm trying to remember. Jalen Carter's just playing really good football. I think every week now you're seeing, just even if he doesn't make tackles, he's just dominating up front, which helps out everybody else. I think that's become a constant. I think Nakobe Dean is another guy that I think has continued to improve as a run defender as the year has gone on. Another guy we were uncertain, just because he's been hurt so much and he's a smaller body, but I think he has a really good feel for playing downhill. He finds gaps. He works through bodies. He avoids bodies without jumping out of his gaps. Because obviously he's not going to take on guys that weigh 100 pounds more and shove them out of the way. So he's got to sort of figure out how to navigate traffic. And I think he's really shown that he's much better at that as the season's gone on. So, those are, we've talked Baun 100 times. We don't need to do that. But those two guys kind of stood out to me.
One more for you, though, before we get started here. Real quick, it's a guy you've talked about for 4 years. You're the one guy that's talked about Milton Williams consistently. What do you like so much about? What is he doing that's people aren't talking enough about him? But I know you.
No, he's one of those guys that he's probably going to live his career, whether it's still in Philly or somewhere else, as more of a rotational guy than a guy who's going to play 60 or 65 snaps. Although, if he were to sign somewhere else and someone decided, hey, we're signing him to be, full-time guy, then we'd have to see if he can do that. But Adam, I just think he's good against both pass and run. I mean, he's one of those guys that just has a feel. He knows how to use his hands. He's a little quicker than you. I mean, he's not explosive the way you think of the great interior pass rushers, but he's explosive enough. Like he's got enough juice
Mm.
without being, oh my God, explosive. And he's just a really good two-way player. He plays the run, he rushes the quarterback. Number of tackles is irrelevant. It's meaningless. But, he's a factor. He's a big factor. He's a better player than Jordan Davis.
Mm. Hey, speaking of run and pass for a defensive lineman, I don't know if it jumped out to you. I wrote it down a few times that I thought Jalen Hunt in the run defensive game,
Yeah,
as far as
yeah.
setting the edge and getting off blocks, did a pretty good job.
There was one play in the run game where he drove back the left tackle more, like he jarred him off contact.
Mm.
Um, I think it was in the second quarter. He
You have
jarred
that?
him off contact, and he played
I'm
off the.
smiling. I am smiling because I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's go to that.
Do it.
Oh, well, let's go
Let's
to it
start with
then.
him. Yep. I
It
want to
Let's
see
go
wasn't
to
this.
it.
it's
I
funny. It
mean, it
wasn't
ended up
even
being
the
a
first
4-yard
one.
gain, but that's irrelevant. I mean, he did his job. I mean,
Cool.
it was really good. If you have it,
Absolutely.
you can see. And I believe he was actually in a three-point stance on this play. He was not standing up, if I'm not mistaken, because I think they were in a five-man front. But if you have it up and we can take a look at it,
I do have it up, and let's take a look at it.
they might even have been in a six-man front, if I'm not
Yeah, I
mistaken.
do think what happens is you're right that Bond, which he occasionally does, as you mentioned, comes down and it becomes a 6-1 instead of a 5-2. As I roll it, you'll see here
Right, right.
that forces a little
Yeah,
bit
so what happens is they reduce the front inside. That's what happened. When Vaughn comes down, they reduce the front inside, and it becomes kind of what we call a bare front. It's reduced inside. So they're basically covering the center and the two guards. And Hunt essentially, he becomes almost a pure interior defensive end here. So he's in a 4-point stance, not even a 3-point stance. But
right.
you'll see as you run this, watch, and actually this is almost better from the sideline because you can see him change the line of scrimmage. Watch him jar more. See
Mhm.
how he pushes him right back?
Yeah, look at that power for a guy
Look at
who's
that
born in
power.
this position. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then to rip off, I guess they call it
And then he
shedding,
plays.
ripping
Now
off.
it's still a 4-yard game, but that's not his, and that's not his fault. See, this
Hey,
is the only issue you face when you only here go back. This is the only issue you face when when you have a 6-1 is there's only one second level defender. So
right.
there's no other linebacker who's there to, in a sense, clean up off what he does and make this a 1-yard gain.
Right.
So, but that's not his fault.
Right. Plus, I mean, when you're in a two,
And plus, Bourne has to be the edge setter here because Mitchell's playing off coverage, so Bourne can't jump inside. Bourne has to play outside and then try to squeeze back inside, which he does. But
right.
he can't jump inside right off the snap because he's the edge setter.
Yeah. And when you're the Steelers, Greg, when you see two deep and you see 6 men, you figure if I can get past the first level, I'm going to get a big run out of this because
Yeah,
that's,
because if he were to get past there, then
yeah.
you're up to the safety. Is that Blankenship?
This one, I think
No,
that's CJ there. Or is it a 27? That's actually
it's
Mitchell.
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 It's Mitchell. Yeah, because he backed up. Yeah,
Right.
because what's his name? Blankenship came down like he always does to
Yep.
to fill,
Yep.
and then the tight end blocked him. But yeah, you're up to this. You're basically up to the third level if that doesn't happen.
Right. And from this vantage point, I just impressed with this kid being so young and how he drives back Dan Moore and gets
Mm.
all. That's the key here is shedding him right there and
Yeah,
using
no,
the long
yeah,
arms.
that's a really really good job.
Yeah.
That's a really good job.
And by the way, Geoff, it would have been a much bigger gain had Hunt not gotten him. That hole was big. It would have gotten up to Quinion. It would have been a
But
12,
that
13
play
yard.
to me
Yep.
is an example of what we've talked about. We talked about with the Patreon group when someone asked me about the defense. Even Bond there. I mean, it's doing your job the right because Bond was the edge setter. So like Bond can't jump inside. So Bond has to stay outside. But
Mhm.
then he squeezed inside and then got involved. So just those are the details that allow you to play good defense that those things get overlooked.
All right, Nolan Smith, you mentioned him. This is a third down, I believe, on the Steelers' second drive. And Nolan Smith here is lined up over the right tackle, Greg. He's going to wind up stunting, and you see him get his hand on the football. So just an example of how well he was playing here. This
Yeah,
was,
he's
yeah, it was,
he played. I mean, in the first half in particular, he seemed like he was all over the field in every phase of the game.
by the
Um,
way,
you're
late
starting to
rotation.
see you're just starting to see the athletic traits show as you can run this. It's a four-man D line here, and you can see it's a TE stunt,
Yep.
and it's actually the Steelers do pick it up, but
Yep.
then
But look at him jump up in the air and tip
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
just awareness. That's just an example of awareness, understanding. But I mean, that's a really good job.
And then from
But
the
he's
other angle,
he's
you can see.
played, this game. He was just all over. It was one of those like almost like complete games. Like it's not like he had four sacks
Right.
but he just shows up and he's competitive. He makes plays with range, with speed. He's playing really good football.
Yeah. Look, he times this perfectly, by the way. He
Yeah.
throws off the guard and then jumps up right at the last second. Sometimes you see a guy jump early and knock it down. He tips it right at the last second there with those long arms that he puts to use.
No, it's like I said, I mean, you guys know Adam's known me for 20 plus years, Jeff. We've gotten to be, close
Mhm.
doing all this, but I just tell you what the tape shows.
Mhm.
There's no agenda. I mean, Smith at the beginning of the year, Smith did not look like a player, but
He-
he's
he-
getting better and better and better. And that's what the tape tells me. That he's getting better and better and better.
Hey,
And
Greg, just on that, I would let you know that there was a reason why he was the fourth edge rusher to start the season. He didn't have a great training camp.
no, and we talked about even in training camp when we started doing this, we said, he was getting just handled by second and third string offensive tackles in
Yes.
preseason games.
Yeah, I remember you pointing that out on your preseason tape watch. That's why it's like you couldn't imagine what we're seeing now. There's no way you would know that because he
No, and
never
that's why
showed
you
anything.
can't, yeah, you just got to let the tape,
Yeah.
But
I always
give
come
him
back,
credit.
because obviously we do a lot of wiring of players here at NFL
Yeah.
Films, and I remember, I don't think it's something I would ever run in a show. I wouldn't run it in a show. I don't know if other people have. Where Chris Jones said when we had him wired a number of weeks ago, he said, "Men lie, women lie, tape don't lie." I mean, at the end of the day, the tape tells you, what you want to know. I mean, Nolan Smith is playing really good football now. Just like we talked about with Jalen in the offense. There was a really strong game. That's and by the way, there is definitely a sense with coaching staffs, and you guys know this as we wrap up. There's a sense with coaching staffs they're going to be in the playoffs, that they're going to have to do certain things to win in the playoffs against better teams. They know the passing game has to become a bigger factor, and now they're trying to figure out and the best way for the passing game to become a bigger factor. And you know, so they're trying to take what they have. Everybody knows what Jalen's strengths and weaknesses are, not only in the Eagles building, but around the league. You guys have had these conversations as well. Everybody knows it. He's been playing long enough. It's all there on tape. So how do you maximize Jalen and the pass game to go with this really strong power run game? Because they know if they have to play, in Minnesota, in Detroit, they're probably going to have to score with the passing game. And so they know that. They know that, we have to develop a passing game that can be a very significant factor if it needs to be.
All right. We will see if this trend of great defense that's been going on all year, all since week 5, and then this resurgent passing offense can carry it into Sunday's all-important NFC East game for the Eagles against the Washington Commanders down there in Landover, Maryland. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be very, very cold. So
I
we'll
know it's supposed to be really cold on Sunday. I like summertime better.
Yeah, good thing we're all real inside. All right, that's going to do it for Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell on Inside the Birds. For Greg Cosell and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Catch you on the next one.